Welcome to the Real Life Buyer podcast. In this podcast, you will hear interviews with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, authors, and technical specialists in their field. These professionals will hasten your development, accelerate your career, and broaden your business know-how. Now, introducing your host, Dave Barr, interviewing with a purchasing twist.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Life Buyer. Today, I'm delving into the secrets of delivering extraordinary customer experiences, something I feel so many businesses are lacking in right now. Today, I'm joined by Vance Morris, a former Disney leader turned entrepreneur and customer service authority. Drawing from his 10 years at Disney, Vance now helps businesses Disnify their customer service, blending Disney-inspired strategies with practical, scalable solutions for SMEs and many others. Vance is also the author of 3 books, Systematic Magic, Tales from the Customer Service Crypt, and The Wealthy Cleaner Blueprint. Today, we'll uncover his 7 magic keys for exceptional service, learn how to recover from service failures profitably, and explore how SMEs can create unforgettable experiences that boost loyalty and revenue. So, without further ado, I welcome Vance Morris onto the podcast. Hi, Vance.
Thank you so much, Dave. I look forward to being here. Hopefully everybody can understand me with my American accent.
I'm sure we can. We're very used to American accents in the UK. So thanks for that.
Very good.
Now, I've been looking through your professional profile and your website and loved your self-description. And if I can quote it, it says, former rockin' birth control factory security guard turned Disney leader turned bankrupt out-of-work executive turned carpet cleaner turned successful entrepreneur. So please tell us some of the highlights of this quite incredible journey that drove your passion for helping others to make their customer service exceptional.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of that is true. So, truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. I was a security guard at a birth control factory. It was my college job. Very interesting. Very boring, but very interesting. Really not much to say there because nothing ever happened. But so when I got out of college, I worked for Disney for 10 years. It was probably the best thing that happened to me as that laid the foundation for what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And one of the first things I learned at Disney, and it wasn't customer service, it wasn't wowing people or learning how to pick up trash before it even hits the ground. You know, Disney's known for that kind of stuff. Disney runs on systems and processes. And I was thoroughly amazed. I got to my first job at Disney and we were opening up a new resort. And this was before the internet and, a lot of computers and things. And there were these giant binders everywhere. I mean, just stacks of these binders. And I asked my boss, I said, what are all these binders? He goes, well, these are our SOPs and our OJTs on all of the different positions and how to open a new resort. I was floored at the level of detail, not only for just running stuff, but for opening. I was like, this is amazing. And so no stone was left unturned. I mean, everything down to, how to sweep the streets and how to clean the dishes. I mean, everything was covered. It was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't, that was more impressive really than, how we served people. I was just really blown away by it. I did leave Disney. People do leave, spent 10 years there, but I get that question quite frequently. And I was 10 years with a company. I was like, well, is there anything else out there in the world? So spent a number of years with different restaurants, actually another 15 years in restaurants, hospitality, hotels. Along the way, found out I make a lousy employee. I don't like to be told what to do. So hence me getting into my own companies. And I did. I started a carpet cleaning company. And that's what all small children dream of doing when they're growing up. The heck with astronauts and baseball players. We all want to be carpet cleaners deep in our hearts. So I started, and the reason I chose that, one, it was small enough that I could do it, on my own. And 2, it was something that was considered a lowly commodity business. I don't know about in the UK, but in the States here, carpet cleaners are not exactly looked upon as, high echelon type services, but I was going to make it one. I was going to make it a premium level service. And that's what I set about doing. We started out with premium level prices. We set our standards that we weren't going to clean certain types of homes. Primarily, we started out with we wouldn't clean rentals because, people who live in rentals generally, I'm being very broad here. I don't want anybody who's living in a rental to get all upset, but primarily the rental, for us, it was we have a large resort area and they're weekly rentals. So, they just get beat up by all of the visitors and holiday people. And it just wasn't something we wanted to do because the owners wanted it done quick and cheap and well. And we're like, well, pick one, but we can't do all three. So we really focused on the affluent market. We soon added a Oriental rug washing facility to it, which again lends itself to affluent market. We were able to continuously increase prices, continuously add to the experience because we were charging more. So when you charge more, you can create better experiences. And it's like this flywheel. You charge more, you put some of that extra money in your pocket as profit, and then you take some of that money and you reinvest it in the experience. And then it gets better and you do the same thing again. You take some of that money, you put it in your pocket, and you take some of that money and you put it back in the experience. And it just keeps going. And there's really no end to it. And people started to ask me, this is probably about 2013, people said, well, how are you doing this? Because you don't look like you're working very hard, which was a very astute observation. And so I started coaching and consulting with businesses on how I was putting this all together, which brings us to today.
Brilliant. I'll touch on two things you've mentioned there. Firstly, the systems, the processes, everything that you observed happening in the background in Disney. Did you see that translated into other businesses you worked in? And did you have the same thing in your business?
100%. I knew I didn't want to clean carpet for the rest of my life. And so I knew if I was going to not sell the business or get out of it, but if I was going to not clean carpet and be able to do other things, I was going to have to put systems in place. So, and that's what I did from the beginning, constantly documenting marketing systems, operation systems, sales systems, how do we clean systems, everything. So when I hired a general manager, which was probably 7 years ago, put a general manager in place, and I said, just run the systems. Don't get any crazy ideas. Don't change anything. Just run the systems. Now, if you think there's a better way to do it, great. When we have our weekly meeting, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it. If it's something that's an improvement, great, I'm all ears, but just run the systems. And that's what he does, which allows me to, I have 3 home service businesses. I spend about 90 minutes a week on them. So systems equals freedom. It allows you to go and do things that without them, you'd be going crazy. Now, say you don't want to be a coach or a consultant, you don't want to go do other things. Great. Systems still have a place, and it will allow you to, go and get more business. Because without systems, if you're just running around all willy-nilly, you don't have time to build the business. So yeah, systems, very important in a small business.
Yeah. And the second thing I'd like to touch on, you mentioned that you'd be increasing prices and adding some of that value, obviously, into yourself, but also into the experience of the customer. Now, so many businesses these days are on the race to the bottom. They think they've got to get more market share by reducing prices. So what made you think and travel in the opposite direction by increasing your prices?
Yeah, well, certainly. So, there is no competitive advantage to being second cheapest at all. Hey, come see us. We're second cheapest. That doesn't do any good. So you have to be the cheapest, which is constantly bringing price down and erodes all margins. And sooner or later, you're paying the customer to go and do the service for them. I'll give you a quick example. So I had a string of service stations here in the US. I don't know, in the UK, you may have them. They're like Jiffy Lube. They're like oil change places, quick lubes. And he was always getting beat up on price. And he was competing on it. And he said, this is just crazy. So we turned his service stations into the old 1950s style service stations where like four guys run out. They're all in white shirts and bow ties and gloves. And they open the doors and one guy's squeegeeing the windshield, another guy's checking the air pressure in the tires. And they lead you into the waiting room. And in the waiting room, there's not 3-day-old stale coffee. There's actually a barista there ready to make your favorite coffee drink. And, I mean, I'm shrinking this down quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of other components to it, but he is now 45% higher in price than his local competitors. Here's what and he's got a huge line. People want the experience. They are willing to pay for the experience. He's serving probably 35% less people than his competitors, but he's charging 45% more, much more profitable. It's less wear and tear on the equipment, less wear and tear on his employees. They're not working as hard. So now he's got higher employee retention. The customers love it. And so increasing those prices have not just a benefit to experiences and money in your pocket, but customer retention, employee retention, wear and tear on the buildings, if you have vehicles, et cetera. There are a lot of benefits to those prices. And, if you want to go cheap, good luck, but you're competing against Amazon and Walmart and you can't. It's just, you'll be out of business real fast.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also you get a different type of customer, I guess, the ones that, as you say, truly appreciate and value the service you're providing. And if you go cheap, let's say, you just get everybody who moans and groans and wants everything for nothing, I guess.
Right. And they're pulling coupons out of their pockets and they're like, oh, well, this only expired yesterday. Take it today. And, it's, yeah.
Brilliant. So I guess this is what you talk about when you say about Disnifying businesses. So for those SMEs, they could be small manufacturing companies or whatever. What would you say are the most impactful low-cost strategies to create a Disney-like customer experience? Because you want to make sure you get the delighted clients that come back time after time. And you seem to be suggesting those are the people that you're managing to get with higher prices.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to, especially, I call it low, no cost ways. I call them, ways to wow without breaking the bank. And it's a lot of stuff that grandma taught us. Grandma taught us you write a thank you letter when you get a gift from somebody, right? And so that's what we do. We write handwritten thank you notes to all of our customers. After we do the service, the next day, handwritten thank you note goes out. Nobody's doing that. I mean, I go to the same auto dealer to buy vans for our fleet. And so I'm spending $30,000 at a drop. Never once have I gotten I haven't even gotten a postcard, but I've never gotten a thank you note. I'm doing a $300 carpet cleaning and I'm doing thank you notes, thank you notes, thank you notes. What that does is it starts to create an emotional connection with my customers. Now, oh my God, he took the time to write a thank you note, just like grandma. Another easy thing. How about answering the phone live? Really, this will separate you from every business out there because we all have gotten lazy and we start with the automated, phone thing, push 1 for this, 2 for that, 3 for this. Our companies aren't big enough for that. We really, unless you're AT&T or, or one of the big grocery chains, you just answer the phone live. You will separate yourself from everyone else. Especially if you're advertising on Google. So if you're advertising on Google, you're paying to be there and you don't answer the phone live. Well, one, when somebody calls you, you just paid for that phone call, probably a lot of money. 2, that person, that customer prospect is not waiting for you to call them back. They just went to the second guy in the list on Google and so on and so on. So, we answer the phone live. And people are, I listen to the calls, and at least one call a day, people are like, oh my God, you answered the phone. Well, yeah, so it's simple things like that. Follow up, calling the day after the service. Oh my God. We give gifts. They're not expensive gifts. They're very small. So like when we come to a customer's house, we're going, like if you're going to a home for a party or, a little gathering, you'll bring a bottle of wine or, some hors d'oeuvres or snacks or something, and you don't go empty handed. Well, we feel the same way. We're going to somebody's home, so we bring a little gift. And it's nothing extravagant. It's a custom little blue box, and it is a bottle of our spot remover, a bag of cookies, and a little note from me. Well, when was the last time you had somebody from the trades show up at your house with a little gift? I would imagine probably never.
I haven't, no.
Right. But to me, for us, it costs less than $5 US. It separates us from everybody else out there. Nobody's doing it. And when you do that little gift, it starts a process called reciprocity. If I give something to you, you feel compelled to give something back to me. It's just human psychology. It's just the way it works. And so when we do that, one, yes, we're doing it to separate ourselves. Two, we're doing it, yes, it's to be nice. But we also know that customers are going to give something back. So when it comes time for us to do our sales presentation, 26% more people pick a higher package than before we did the gift. So for us, that equated to like an additional $65,000 in sales every year for a little $5 gift. Not a bad trade-off. So you just have to look at your customer journey, where each point where your business comes in contact with the customer, and you look at it and you're like, how can we make that better? Answering the telephone. Well, if you're not answering it live, the way to make it better, answer it live. Great. 6 months later, okay, how can we make answering the telephone better? Well, let's answer it in 4 rings. Great. 6 months later, come back, we'll answer it in 3 rings. Great. It's all just incremental, different iterations, but incremental, constantly getting better. All the stuff that I've been doing in my business have been just incremental improvements. That gift, it took us probably 18, 24 months to get that gift to where it is today. It did. We didn't just think of this. It just took some time to get to it. So don't think, I've had this business now 17 years. So I've had time to implement this stuff. So everything I'm giving you now, you could go out and do it and not have to wait 17 years. You just go do it. So
brilliant advice. There's a couple of words that jump into my mind as the personalization of things. People feel that you're talking to them directly. In this case, you particularly are. You're showing appreciation for their business as well. And it's not taken for granted. I think everybody these days feel a bit taken for granted. You pay consistently a subscription, for example, to a business, particularly telecoms, shall we say. Every month you pay the money, and the next time the renewal comes up, you see it jumps up. And so what does everybody do? They have to ring them up and try and negotiate the price down. Rather, they will quite happily give a lower price to a new customer than an existing customer, so they don't feel appreciated. And therefore, what do? They either negotiate down or just leave.
Right, and that's a problem. I think that is the worst thing a company can do is give a better price to a new client. That's atrocious. I never do that. I wouldn't dream of doing that. I think that's just a slap in the face to your current customers. And the fact that the other thing that's bad is the only time you ever hear from a company is when they want money. That's horrible too. So, for your audience, if let's say you only see your customer once a year. Well, is that the only time they ever hear from you is when you're taking money from them? That's not a relationship. That's a one-way street. You go out, you fix the air conditioning, and they give you a check, and then boom, you don't see them for another year. If they find a better deal, they're leaving. So one of the huge things that Disney does and what I teach is creating a connection, creating some kind of, and I'm not talking woo-woo, hocus pocus. I'm talking a real emotional connection. One of the best ways to do that is to stay in constant contact with your customers between services. So I am a firm believer in sending mail, like through the Postal Service. Last I checked, they have a better deliverability rate than any email platform out there. In the US, it's still about 99%. I don't know about the UK, but in the US, it's about 99%. So I send a print newsletter through the mail. And I've been doing it in all of my businesses now for well over 15 years. And I shamelessly use my children in my marketing. Love it. So my daughter, when she was 5, loved to do ballet. And so at the recital, I took a picture of her in her tutu and I put it front and center in the newsletter. And every year, ballet recital, picture, newsletter. And so my customers watched my kids grow up. So she was probably 10 or 11, and we were in the grocery store, and this lady came running up to my daughter. She goes, "Oh my God, Emma, how was your ballet recital?" My daughter and I looked at each other and we're like, "Who the hell is this lady?" We're ready to run away. And I had to think, she's got to be one of my customers. She is never leaving me as a customer. We have created an emotional connection with her, and she's not leaving. And as small business owners, we have to be able to create those connections so that when we do a price increase, or heaven forbid, we screw up and make a mistake, if we've created that connection, they are more willing to forgive us, more willing to accept the price increase because we have that connection with them. And it makes it easier. Plus, we become more referable. Oh, I just got a newsletter from the plumber the other day. Betty Sue's got a plugged toilet. Oh, I just got a newsletter. You should call these guys. So, I mean, even if it's not a newsletter, send a postcard once a month. And it doesn't always have to be salesy, I mean, yeah, you can put an offer in there, but, if you're always pounding people with discounts and promotions, it's not a relationship. It's just business stuff.
Yeah. So in this case, we're talking about an emotional investment in the people, not a financial one. As you say,
Right.
she's now feels that she can relate to you as a human being and a human being's family, as opposed to a service provider.
Right. 100%. And any chance you get to make a connection at some level with your customers, you should do. So I do a lot of speaking. I speak around the world on customer experience, and I slip in my speeches. I slip in a lot of my background, my personal background, into the speech, so that I can make a connection with somebody in the audience. Because the more people I can connect with in the audience, the more they're going to listen and possibly even maybe buy something. So I mentioned the fact that, yes, I've been married a couple of times. Okay, great. I have now connected with all of the divorced people in the audience. Okay. I mentioned that I have 4 kids. Great. I have now connected with anybody who has multiple children, and so on and so forth. So it's not, I'm not talking about my shoe size or, whatever, but I'm mentioning things that are part of who I am so that I can resonate and connect with people in my audience or my customers, and then they get it, they connect.
Absolutely. Now, I mentioned in the introduction about 7 magic keys, and you just mentioned a few seconds ago about when a business makes a mistake. So if we put those together, what do you see as the 7 magic keys of a customer service recovery plan? I think that's what you referred to. And that, in this case, it not only resolves issues, but turns dissatisfied customers into loyal advocates. So can you share about that?
Yeah. So, well, first, I think most businesses should practice what I call anticipatory service so that you prevent the problem from ever happening. So I work a lot with medical offices, orthodontists, and such. And notoriously, doctors are always late. I don't know about in the UK, but in the US, they're always late and behind, which is a real irritant to the patient. So I was working with one doc, and he agreed. He goes, "Yes, we need to do something," but he didn't really believe it. So I pulled the office manager aside and I said, why don't you go out and buy, a whole bunch of $5 Starbucks gift cards. And when people come in, if the doc's running late, I want you to give one to every patient that's coming in late. So front desk lady would stand up and say, I'm really sorry, but Dr. Bob is running a little behind today, but we really value your time. Here's a $5 Starbucks card. Please get a coffee on us before, once you leave. And so, I mean, you didn't solve the problem, but at least you anticipate the problem, and the patient doesn't feel so bad. But we had a meeting, the finance meeting the next month, and a doctor was looking at it and goes, what is this $3,000 marketing cost? And we're like, oh, that's all the $5 Starbucks cards we gave away for every time you were late. I swear to God, the next day he was not late for one appointment. So we solved the problem. So that's anticipatory. Now, when you do have an issue, one, if you've created these connections, they're going to be a little bit more lenient with you and not like yell and scream and pound the table. And it really depends on what you've done, But let's take being late again. So my guys in the carpet biz or in the mold company, they know if they're running late, one, they call the next customer and say, look, I'm stuck on a job. I'm going to be a little bit behind. And they do that when they realize they're going to be behind, not when they're already late. Then they call the office and they say, hey, I'm running late. So then the office manager calls and apologizes. And then on the way from that house to the next house, the technician stops at a local grocery store and buys flowers and takes the flowers to the next house and says, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Smith. I was unavoidable. I'm really sorry we were late. Here's some flowers, to brighten up your kitchen. What lady is going to yell at a guy who's standing there with a bouquet of flowers? And if a guy answers the door, it's a little awkward, but you're like, well, here, just give these to your wife, So, I mean, there are ways you want to interrupt and acknowledge that you've made the mistake and try to fix it before it gets worse. Because when time elapses, the problem gets worse. The problem gets more expensive to fix. So it's like getting a cut on your finger. You get a cut on your finger and you put a little ointment and a Band-Aid on it, it's going to get better. But if you get a cut on your finger, you put a little dirt in it and you rub that around, pretty soon it's infected, and then it gets gangrene, and then they got to amputate. But it's the same thing with a problem. If you have struggling for an example here real quick, but if let's say you have a burnt steak, they send it back, and it's a party of 6 and it's one meal burnt steak. And they're like, well, we'll recook it, and they send it back, and then it comes back out and it's burnt again. And then they send it back, and then the entire party is done eating their dinner. And one guy, finally gets his third steak, and it's easy. They've really ruined the dinner for this party. And let's say nobody comes over to apologize. Chef doesn't come out. Manager doesn't come out. Nothing's done. Now they're kind of getting cranky. Right? I mean, they were probably cranky after the first burnt steak, where anybody could have come out and apologized, maybe offered the guy a salad or another glass of wine, and they probably would have been happy with that. Probably would have cost them, what, $10 for that? Maybe after the second burnt steak, they could, oh my God, we're really sorry. Let's we'll buy a round of desserts, for the table. We're really sorry. But if nothing happened, now the manager is getting called to the table because these people are ticked off, and now they're into the negotiation of how much do I have to take off of the whole ticket? Am I comping 50%, 75%? How much do I need to compensate these people so that we can get them back in? So you see how time elapsed. In the beginning, it wasn't very expensive. At the end, it's extremely expensive. And you've also risked that customer never coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And equally, they'll probably share that experience with not just one friend, but probably many friends as well.
Exactly. And bad news travels faster than good news.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great you mentioned that, because that leads very nicely on to my next question of recognizing the higher revenue and profitability you get when you make sure your customer has an outstanding experience. Can you give us some context in what's possible? Do you have any particular clients or any experiences where you say, well, when they're operating as they were generating X amount of money. After they worked on their customer experience with yourself, they ended up at a whole new level. Can you share anything there?
Sure. I worked with a dentist down in Florida. Now I know UK, you have the nationalized
NHS, yeah.
insurance. So here in the US, we have insurance, but it's personal. But we also have private pay. So I'm working with a dentist, and there were 8 other dentists in her building, and they all took insurance. So their copay, they pay. Everybody pays $30, and you can pick whatever dentist. And there was no separating the dentist. She was struggling. She was working. She was seeing however many patients every day. Really not making a lot. Couldn't pay back her student loans because medical school. I think she was in her late 40s, and she still hadn't paid back the medical loans. And so we got hooked up. I can't remember. I think an orthodontist client of mine hooked us up, and I said, "Well, what can we do here?" She goes, "I don't know, but this is really frustrating. I want to make more money, and I don't want to be working this hard." I said, "Well, would you be open to stop taking insurance and go completely private pay, where you control your prices?" She goes, I think I could do that. I said, okay. So we do a brainstorming session about, again, their personality. What do they like? And I found out her favorite movie was Peter Pan. And I said, okay, great. So long story, we did a whole bunch of negotiation and brainstorming and stuff. And so we created the pirate dentist. All right. So she was one that she went all out on her office. So now when you go see her, she turned, and she also was going to be just a pediatric dentist. So once you turned 18, she didn't want to see you anymore. So now when you go into her office, she's dressed as Captain Hook. The dental technicians all look like Mr. Smee. They walk around the office saying "arg." There's a giant shipwreck in the front of the office that's like a playground where they go in and they do things. They have TVs in the ceiling that are playing Peter Pan. They have the floor looks like the ocean. So when when Wendy and everybody were flying into Neverland, and you could see kind of the ocean on the ground and the islands and everything. Well, that's what the floor is painted like. The chairs are like little rowboats. She just went completely all out on this. And she stopped taking insurance, and she charges whatever she charges. So, and remember, she had 8 other dentists in her building that she was competing with. So when she made the switch, she stopped taking insurance. So she got rid of 2.5 people in her office, eliminated 2.5 positions, because that's all they did was insurance billing. So that was about $160,000 a year in salary she was able to eliminate because she didn't take insurance anymore. Obviously, she was able to raise her prices because everybody wanted to go see the pirate dentist. And so she had no problems with capacity. She was just seeing people because everybody wanted to go there. She eventually was able to hire 2 other dentists. So we had 2 more Captain Hooks in there. And now she works like 3 days a week. And her medical debt is paid off. So she's kind of, I don't want to say she's an extreme example. And yes, she did some infrastructure changes. She went all in on creating an environment that was, really designed for the kids, but she doesn't have an advertising problem. She doesn't have a, people lining up at the door problem. She is just the people just coming to see her. And could anybody have done that? Certainly. But nobody had I guess the word is the guts to try it. You know what I mean? But she was just at her wit's end. She was just like, I don't want to do this forever. This is killing me. It's not why I got into dentistry. So she said, you know what? Let's take the leap. I'll make the leap. And it worked for her.
Sounds like a great case of certainly trying to differentiate yourself, your business, away from all the others. And it may sound like an extreme case, but how on earth do you segregate yourself from other dentists, make yourself stand out? So it's a brilliant example of thinking outside of the proverbial box and such.
Yeah, I mean, a dentist is a dentist is a dentist. How do you separate one from the other, you know?
Yeah. So it's all about creating that experience that everybody enjoys and makes you unique. So
Yes.
very few people can, try and copy that as well, isn't it? Now, one thing I want to touch back on are systems and processes and the fact that you've talked about where people make mistakes and you anticipate. Now, for many businesses, not many spend a lot of time in anticipating what could go wrong, be it with a product they have or a service they have. So, can you give us maybe another example or two of where businesses purposely go and identify all the opportunities where things could go wrong and then make sure they have it documented and people are trained to know how to deal with the different types of failure that could occur?
Yeah, I don't know that you could document everything. I mean, that to me, I mean, systems are designed to kind of give you guardrails or guide rails. And so at Disney and in my businesses, the systems are designed to give you freedom. And not just for me, but for the technicians and the hourly workers. And when they have the systems, they understand these are the guidelines. This is the lane I need to be in. And if I do that, then I have freedom to add little things on the outside, the little wows, the little excitement. We identify, as far as recovery, we identify or we give the authority to the employees a certain dollar amount. So if you go to a Ritz-Carlton, now, I'm not advocating this for a small business, but if you go to a Ritz-Carlton, they give every employee there $2,000 to solve a guest issue. No questions asked. If you need to solve a guest issue, you have the ability to spend up to $2,000 to solve that issue. And I mean, if you spend however much you spend, you will get asked, say, hey, what happened? And, maybe coached on, could you have done something else? But you won't get in trouble. You just do it. So I like to work in kind of thresholds, and Disney does this is, let's say, from $0 to $50. Is this a $0 to $50 problem? And you ask yourself, if this happened and I was offered a $50 solution, would I be happy? Would that be enough to make me come back? And would that be enough to satisfy me? If yes, great. And the thing is, it's got to be at the line level employee being able to do that. They got to be empowered to take and issue that, because remember, if it goes up to the next level, time has elapsed and the problem has gotten worse. And now if the $50 thing doesn't work, okay, sir, well, I can see you're not going to be satisfied with my solution, which this is really all I'm authorized to do. But I want to make sure that you're happy and we can really take care of you. It's going to be 1 second. Let me just bring in somebody who has a little more juice than I do, and we'll bring them in and we'll get this sorted out. That would be, kind of the way, and different levels have different authorities. Some people might want to say, hey, you know what? Here, $500. Just whatever you got to do, $500. Take care of the customer. I mean, it really just depends on your business. I mean, I wouldn't give my guys $500 to solve a problem, but would I say, you know what? If something's really screwed up, would I say, you know what? Just go ahead and give it to them for free, the cleaning? Yeah. Say, look, if they are that mad, say, look, Mrs. Smith, I know we were late. I know we weren't able to get that spot out of the carpet. I'm so sorry. And I know you're really frustrated. We'd like to just give this to you on the house. And usually that kind of shuts them up. They appreciate it. And we've even gotten, reviews that said, they did a really good job. They were late. I was probably a little out of line. I was angry with them, but they just gave it to us.
It's a great example. And I guess in turn, your employees feel empowered, trusted, and recognized as being somebody that can take a decision on behalf of the company. Yeah. So I think they're probably quite fired up.
It does. And, that helps with employee retention. You can't Disney tried this. They tried to say they wanted the management there to have an ownership mentality. Now, I know what they were trying to do, but it didn't come out well. I mean, when I was there were 35,000 employees. Now there's 80,000. There is no way I was going to have any kind of ownership of anything in that company. I mean, it just, it wasn't. I mean, I had my stock, but that was it. It should have been more authority, kind of thing. So, but if you want people to be engaged, they do have to have the authority to be able to take care of stuff. And that's how you get them engaged. If you have employees that are engaged, they're not leaving. They're going because they feel like they are contributing to something a little bit bigger. My carpet cleaning company, my general manager has been with me 14 years. That's like 17 lifetimes in the carpet cleaning world, and my other guys have all been with me over 5. So, it's just how you treat them, what you allow them to do. And
yeah. I guess 2 things that just popped into my mind then is, firstly, you must be very good at recruiting the right people. So I wouldn't surprise me if you've got a system for that. And secondly, it's creating the right culture in your business. Have you got a few words you could share on those 2?
Sure. So we hire for attitude, not aptitude. I can teach you to do anything, but I can't teach you to be nice, right? So, and I can't teach you to be on time. So like if you're late to the interview, I don't even bother with the interview. That's it. You're done. Because you're going to be late to work. I don't even give them a grace period. If you don't want, you're 1 minute late, you're late. Bye. You wasted my time. But if you're on time, etc. So I can train you to carry a tray in a restaurant. I can train you to clean a carpet, whatever. But I can't train you to be nice. So, our interviews are really centered around questions about their personality and try to elicit those kinds of answers. What was the second part to the question? Sorry.
So there's the recruitment, but then there's also creating the culture that goes with the, what you want to represent.
Well, so obviously in our industry, we don't need you to have an MBA or college degree. They don't even really require you to have a high school diploma. So sometimes they feel like they're missing out on something. So I believe in trying to help them not only by giving them the paycheck, but by offering them things that they may not get because of, for lack of a better phrase, their stature in life. So, for example, I'll bring in a financial planner. And during one of our meetings, we'll do, he'll just do a 15-minute quick, hey, you should, you're 20 years old, you should really be putting 10% of your pay away. And in 30 years, you're going to have X dollars. And if you can't do that, hey, here's this app called Acorns. I don't know if you have that in the UK, where, you can round up your spending and your pennies and they'll invest the pennies for you. And, and we'll do things like that. We'll have the insurance guys come in and, we'll talk about insurance, and we'll talk about, we'll have the mortgage guy come in and say, one of my guys was able to buy a house by working for me. He never thought he would be able to afford a house. And through not through me. I mean, I don't know a lot about this stuff, but just through us bringing in people that they would probably never interact with, just by bringing them in 15 minutes during one of our staff meetings, they're like, oh, I never knew that. So,
yeah, must create an awful lot of loyalty among your employees, because it demonstrates that you care about them more than them just doing the job.
Yeah, 100%.
Quite amazing. Well, before I ask my last question, obviously, thanks for sharing those incredible insights today. Other than your books, obviously, where should the audience go to visit to learn more about you and your teachings?
Sure. The website's probably best, deliverservicenow.com. There's a tab there for all the courses that we have. We even have some free ones on there. So, I do almost daily service tips and marketing tips. So more than welcome to sign up for that. But yeah, deliverservicenow.com is probably the best place.
Fabulous, fabulous. Just the last question then. So you obviously had an incredible journey and experience with Disney. If you were going to have perhaps a seminar with small business owners now, what would you say about how to go about effectively introducing and embedding a strong service culture that aligns with their unique brand and identity? How could you help them to deliver that pizzazz that they're looking for?
I think first and foremost is be yourself and use your personality, because that is, at the end, that is going to be the only separator. We are all in commoditized business. I am, you are, everyone. The only thing that is going to separate it is your personality and the experience that we're delivering. The second thing I would offer is take one of the ideas that you heard today or that you've read about somewhere else and just take one idea and implement it. Because if you just listen to stuff and don't do anything, then you're never going to profit. You're never going to move forward. So be yourself, be authentic, let that stuff shine through to your prospects, to your customers, and you'll be amazed at what can happen.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing so many really important nuggets of gold today. I'm sure people will take a lot from what you've explained. For a man who's done it and not just talked about it, I think it's an incredible thing to share with others. Thank you very much for joining me today, Vance.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you having me.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it has given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes, and a 5-star review would be most appreciated. If you would like to discover more about me and what I do, take a look at www.thereallifebuyer.co.uk. Bye.